What I did was I led back, took the ball, and I just thought, you know what, I'm going to try this. Could you everybody? Coach Rab here, and welcome to another Kilted Chess Noob episode. I am not a chess coach, not even close. I'm a health and wellness coach that loves chess, but I'm showcasing my journey on this channel, hopefully going from fairly useless at chess to half decent is the goal, if you like. Chess is a fantastic game to play. It's even more fantastic when you can play it well. So that is my goal. I'm going to showcase the journey. Now, today's episode is all about a Hail Mary.
Denver rushes three. Flacco steps up, throws deep, far sideline. Jacoby Jones has it at the 20.
So a Hail Mary in sports is a last-ditch attempt to grasp victory, usually when there's only very few seconds left, or your team's down, or whatever it may be. It's like that last gasp attempt. So if you're watching what we call American football, some of you watching this might just call it football. It's the dying seconds of the game. The quarterback just leans back.
Ravens, and the miracle is answered. I told you don't give up. I told you it wasn't over.
Just throws, obviously aiming for someone, but it's a long one. It's a long shot. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. In the episode today, I'm going to show you how I became very, very jammy and why my typical approach shouldn't have worked, but I was lucky and it did. So, let me just bring up the board. Where are we here? Why is that on? Hold on. I'm on the wrong screen. Boom, boom. Oh, that's fine, that's fine. Right, so from here today, I was playing a game on Blitz. If I remember, it was a 3-minute game with, I think I was getting 10 seconds or a few seconds move increments. Was it as much as that? I'll find out when I play the move. The issue when you're playing these Blitz games, it's very, very fast play. Mistakes are usually quite... they're everywhere. The game I was handling quite well, I then blundered. I was like, oh, you idiot. And that's what led to the force of the Hail Mary. So I'll take you through it. I was playing the white pieces and my opponent was playing the black pieces. Of course, I was using my Vienna. Now, I actually made a slight mistake in there in the opening. So the Vienna opened with the E-pawn. He met me in the middle, and I brought out my knight, standard Vienna opening. He pulled out C-pawn, almost like a Caro-Can, but not quite yet. Now, I should have pushed my D-pawn here into place. That's what I should have done as part of the Vienna, and then if he took, I would have recaptured with the queen. But again, these games are fast. You're just not thinking in the spot. And then I played the other pawn, which is the classic one. If he had pushed his C-pawn, that would have been my move. Anyway, it is, I think we're getting a few seconds move. Let's see, yeah, with like 3 minutes. So he pushed the pawn forward. I brought the knight out. Now, again, I should have probably taken there the game analysis. You don't see that at the time, but it was prefer me to take in the middle there. At the moment, if you see the analysis bar on the left hand side, it's fairly even at this stage. We're just out the opening. He brought his knight out, attacking my pawn and also protecting this square here. I pushed the pawn forward finally, looking for some sort of a trade here. He took, and then I took with the knight. Now, I should have taken with the queen. This would have then opened up, given eyes onto this corner, and would have been a more dominating position. But as such, fast game, wasn't thinking. I took with the knight. He then took back on the center, and I pushed the pawn. Now, in this position, it was wanting me to move the bishop to protect my king. The reason for that is you don't want the kings lined up, because then if at any point that pawn of his moves and he was maybe got a queen in place, it puts me in discovered check, which is never great. But nonetheless, I pushed the pawn up. He pulled out his bishop, putting in eyes on my knight. And then from that position there, I pulled my bishop out to protect said knight. Okay, so we've got this sort of position here, moving into move 15. There's a couple of things I'm going to take away from this. Whenever I do these sorts of games, I try and learn from the review, and there was a huge tactic that I missed coming up, which I'll show you. He castled. Now, the analysis had him slightly ahead at this point, castling the analysis did not like that. It felt it could have sacrificed a knight for the tactic. I'm not sure what that would have been, which knight. I'm not sure if it would have been to here, sacrifice it. I'm not, yeah, maybe that. I'm not quite sure, no, because the queen would have been taken then, so it's not that. Not quite sure what the tactic was, I'm not that good. Nonetheless, it kind of brought it back to even. I then made a boo-boo bringing the bishop out. At the time, I was trying to get eyes on this pawn here, putting some pressure on the king, but Narcissus didn't like that. It preferred me taking that said pawn so that it would force a retake either by the knight or the pawn. It would force it because basically if this is landed in here, it's then got tempo on the queen. So the queen would either have to move or more than likely you would take it back, but as it is. I pulled the bishop out. He then moves his knight across. Now, it doesn't like this at this point. If you see the analysis bar on the left-hand side, it's pushed me up at 1.5. So it's amazing how the difference of one move can change that. He was 1.8, and he jumps and throws around the other way, but so be it. He basically left his knight open, which I went and grabbed. Now, I thought it was a great move. I just felt it was a bit of a blunder. Now, on the next one, he took back in the centre. And this was the bit I'm talking about, because at the time I'm just thinking, he's taking my piece. And this is where I've been showcasing all along just how much I am a noob, because you sometimes focus on what's happening in the action. It's like there's a melee going on, and you're like, and you're not taking a step back to look further afield. And these are things I'm going to have to practice on. So basically, he took there, and I'm right off the bat going, oh, he's now putting my bishop in problems, you know. And I realised that the move suggested, if I had just moved this rook, right, as suggested, because I took back, right, any noob, that's why I'm not rated where I'd love to be, I took back. But if I hadn't, if I had moved that rook to there, it would have pinned, if you go back one, if I'd moved my rook to here instead, it would have pinned his bishop. Now, a pin happens because the piece behind his queen is vulnerable, right? So his queen is there. If he was to move and take, as you know, if I'd left him to either my knight or the bishop, okay, then my rook that I'd moved to here would then bingo his queen, which is a very valuable piece. So effectively, I would have pinned his bishop. He would have then had to unpin himself by moving his queen somewhere, and then I would have been able to take anyway. The difference being, the rook would now be on the d-file. I would now then control the d-file. But of course, in the moment, and my lack of experience, wasn't quite there. So I was like, oh, better take back, right? Naturally. And of course, what did he do? He swoops in. So he's getting the tempo going there. So it's like, right, okay. I brought the queen across. Now, I was basically at this stage, you're never sure. Like that analysis bar in the side has it even. At this stage, I was thinking to myself, I wanted to simplify things. I didn't know. I felt like because he had three pieces along the back line that hadn't been activated yet, and I was almost ready to castle and bring my rooks into play, I kind of felt like I might have been up here. So I offered a queen trade, because if he takes, I was then going to return with the knight. He obliged. I took the knight, okay? He then brings in a bit of danger on my knight there. I move the knight out. Again, what I'm doing thing here is I've got eyes on this pawn with a bishop. This is, so if I sent the bishop in right now, I mean, he's got his rook protecting, okay, but ultimately I'm posing a threat in that side. He then took the pawn down in the corner. That was vulnerable. I left that pawn hanging, you know. I wasn't defending it. In fact, this pawn is also undefended. This one here, my b pawn, but so be it. Lessons learned. So he scalps that. I castled. Now, what's starting to happen here is I've started to get three attackers on this pawn. So his vulnerable f-pawn here has got three attackers, and he's technically only got two defenders at this stage. All right. So I'm like, right, great. You know, if I play my cards right, I could put some real pressure on the king here. So he pulls his knight across because he's going to try and start protecting some squares. I then scalped that sitting pawn. Now, the reason I wanted to do that is in my head, I thought to myself, it's protected here. He's in check, so he either has to take me or he has to move. And I thought to myself, if he takes with his rook, then I'll be able to get in with the knight. And again, his king can't touch me because of this, right? So in my head, I was like, I thought it was a good move. So I was okay there. He moves the king. So I was like, right, okay. Then I brought the other rook into play. Okay, I wanted to then own this this channel here. Obviously, my rooks were already in working in a pair, which is very, very good. He brought up his bishop to put eyes on this rook. And again, I need to stress, I've got 1 minute playtime, which is actually a long time in Blitz. But at the time, you're like, oh my God, he's going to take my rook. He's going to take my rook. And sometimes in chess, when you're doing these special Blitz games, is you focus on one section of the board and then you just don't think about everything else. And I wasn't thinking. I pushed the rook. I remember thinking, right, let's get it out of danger. And I pushed it forward. Now, I wish I could tell you that was a mouse slip, right? I really, really wish it could. But it wasn't. I was concerned about pushing it too far because of his knight. And I don't know why I didn't fancy that square, or even just the square in front, for whatever reason. So, absolutely blundered the rook. If you see the analysis bar on the left-hand side, I was 0.6 up again. It was fairly, it's been fluctuating, fairly level, wasn't sure. And for that point, look at that. Black is now winning. And of course, he spotted it. Great move. Took that rook. And it was like, oh, there you go. And I was like, now, a couple of moves I could have done here. I should have maybe thought, right, scalp the bishop, you know. I was thinking, right, that would be a move. But instead, I thought to myself, at this point, when you lose your rook like that and all you have left is 3 attacking pieces, you felt like you'd thrown away a win. I had 4 pawns left that hadn't really moved. And I was like, he had a pawn majority, 5 to 4, and more attacking pieces. I thought it was done for, 58 seconds left. That's when I thought, you know what? There's a particular form of mate, which I've talked about before, called a smothered mate, which I love. It's one of my, I love it, absolutely love it. Now, a smothered mate is usually involves something like a queen or more of a forcing piece. I'll show you why. So what I did was I led back, took the ball, and I just thought, you know what, I'm going to try this. You know, there's a lot of openings in chess that kind of take a chance. They take a chance that the person doesn't know what to do, and you can end up getting a quick victory. This was that moment where I was playing this game. I thought, you know what, I'm just going to throw it. So I threw in the bishop in next to the king. Now, what's important about this particular move is that bishop is not threatening the king. The only thing it's really threatening is this pawn, right? It's not threatening the king. The king is not in check here. And that was the silly error my opponent played. And it was a trap. Now, like I say, if this hadn't been a bishop, if this had been a queen, or another piece like a rook or something, it would be putting the king in check, and the king would have to, or they would have to respond. Now, interestingly enough, if he had taken with the king, it wouldn't have been such a huge problem. But instead, he took with the rook, and that changed everything. And that's where you get one of these magic things called a smothered mate. Now, as I said before, normally this is done with a forcing piece, like a queen or something like that. Something that, you know, the opposing piece has to take, and it traps the king. So the king now has nowhere to move, and you jump in with your horse. And that becomes the smothered mate. You're in check. Nothing can take this because rooks can only take on straight lines. The king's nowhere to go. Game's over. So that was my Hail Mary. That was like, oh my God, I've made a big blunder. Let's just try something. And my opponent sadly then made a major, major blunder. Like I say, that would have been even a bigger blunder if he had just taken with his king. But I think at the time he was thinking if he took that, he wasn't sure of where things were going to go after that. If he had taken, I'm not quite sure what I would have played. I would have I couldn't have taken his bishop because then he would have just scalped me there. So yeah. It was one of those things. It was a lucky throw, and it worked out. So it got one of my famous, or not my first, not my famous, one of my favourite checkmates, which is a smothered mate. I told you I'm still hunting that Legals mate. One day. But smothered mate is a favourite of mine. Anytime I've come across that, whether that's in a puzzle or in a game, I love it. It's very subtle. The knight, because of the way that the knights move with the L-shaped, it's not always obvious to see. And in that position, again, my opponent had 30 seconds left in a blitz game. He just sees a free piece. I've got to go and gobble it like Pac-Man. It's completely understandable why it happened. Like I say, I was just chancing it, and he pulled off. So there we are. So my Hail Mary, smothered mate, got the win in the bag. My rating still sucks. I'm like 338 on Blitz. One day. Right, hope you all enjoyed that episode. So that was the Hail Mary, Smothered Mate. Again, I keep promising to showcase the opens I use. I think I've mentioned I use the VN and Carol Cam, but I will create a video soon delving a bit deeper into those. The reason I haven't made it up to this point is I'm not knowledgeable enough to completely go into it. I can tell you what I do, and maybe you can then pick up on it. But with all these things, pick an opening that makes sense to you. Those two make sense to me. So I will make a video on them soon. All right, everybody, have an awesome day ahead. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, the usual jazz.